Purple Political Talk here, and today we're going to be looking at 2020 presidential election and going through and seeing what is Joe Biden's best case scenario. So at this map, we're going to be looking at where could he go and push himself to get maybe more than safe states, then more than the likely states, and so on and so forth. So in this best case scenario and landslide scenario, we would see states like Nevada, Colorado already be in safe margins by 15 points or more. What are some of the major things that need to happen for this to happen? Either one, Donald Trump has one of the worst scandals in the history of the United States presidency, or a very prominent Republican runs as third party. I'm just gonna go with the scenario where Donald Trump just has a big scandal, but I mean, realistically, we're getting close to something like this happening just by the way that Trump is handling things. But remember, another big thing is that there's going to be a bold prediction, and Donald Trump will come back at the end of the day from where he is now. But I mean, if we could see two or three more states flip from where we are now, maybe this could actually happen. And I think in best case scenarios, it would be something crazy and unseen before when it comes to this election. Considering that a lot of people have expected this election to be one of the closest, if not the closest election in pretty long time in pretty much in American history, it's going to be hard to see. So now those are all our Democratic safe states, and then we're gonna keep some states unfilled for Joe Biden's best case scenario. And realistically, it's going to be southern states. And considering that he's going to pick, I mean, with all the people that are left, so right now it's looking it's either going to be Kamala Harris or Susan Rice, who are both good with the African American and Black communities down in the South. That Joe Biden might have a scenario where he could go and push in margins there and get close, but at the end of the day, not winning. Joe Biden is going to have an interesting campaign. Just of the way that he campaigned in the primary elections, we just saw the way that he campaigns. He's a very kind of boring type of campaigner. He's more traditional campaigner. Whilst Donald Trump is a very out there, super fiery campaigner. So that really affects certain areas, but some areas like that more. So going into our likely states, in looking at Joe Biden's landslide scenario, which will be likely states? Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Arizona. These states would all go, and New Hampshire as well, would all go by likely margins if we're seeing a Joe Biden best case scenario, landslide, bold scenario. And in this pick, I would say that these states would go from anywhere from 5 to 10 points. And 5 to 10 or 15 even. So some of the Rust Belt will be more on the upper section, I guess, in a best case scenario for Joe Biden. Well, Arizona could possibly as well, and New Hampshire would be nearing the safe 15-point margin. But North Carolina, I think, would be 5 to 7 points because it's still the state of North Carolina. You would have to have some extreme levels of turnout to have a 5-point victory for the Democrats in the state of North Carolina. And for that reason only, I'm putting it in the likely column, but if it could technically go in the lean, if we're talking regular scenario, because it's probably going to go to the Democratic Party as of now by 2 or 3 points. So that's all our likely states. And as we move on to our Republican likely states, some of the additions. Utah and South Carolina would definitely be in the Republican likely states, I would say. And some of these states actually shouldn't be slept on. And actually, now that I think of it, I'm going to add the state of Missouri to that list. These three states are states that have heavy populations of minorities in some places. And in the case of the state of Utah, it's not more of the minorities. They still do have, I think, a lot of Hispanic vote, but they don't have as much. What they do have is a big portion of Mormon vote who does not like Donald Trump at all. At the end of the day, they're all going to go to Donald Trump. But state of Missouri, remember how close it was in 2008. It was the closest state. And remember, it has very big population centers. Has two, St. Louis and Kansas City. Those are two places that should not be slept on. And I would be surprised if people just go on election day and see, why is Missouri not called, or why is Utah not called? I'm not saying, and this is a best case scenario for Joe Biden. So pushing in those margins and things like that. Now going on to a Democratic lean states, I would add states like Florida, states like Ohio, and states of Iowa in the best case scenario for Joe Biden, as well as Nebraska's second congressional district. In Joe Biden's best and bold scenario, we would be looking at a prediction where he simply would be doing amazing. And considering that he could have some appeal in some of these areas, like Iowa and Ohio, better than Florida, Joe Biden could win there by 3 or 5 points, which again, for a swing state, it would be almost a 10-point swing, which again, 10-point swings are pretty hard to do. It's been done before, it's not like it's unheard of, but 10-point swings are something that you have to take 10% of voters, so that's a lot of voters. If you have 1 million votes, that's 100,000 voters you have to take from the other side. So at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see if these states go by those margins, but who knows? And when it comes to Republican state, lean states, I would just put the second congressional district of Maine in the Trump column. And I would say it would be just this district in the lean column for Donald Trump, just because of the fact that, simply just thinking about it, this district is very rural. And rural districts really like Donald Trump. And considering how, look, you have a mass area, for example, of almost the size of a state like North Carolina, and you only have two electoral votes for congressional districts. Sorry. And considering that state is that small and that rural, you're going to see that Donald Trump has great appeal in that district. And as we move on to our last two states, I would say that in a best case bold prediction, Biden might be able to win the state of Texas and the state of Georgia. State of Texas and Georgia, I think, would go narrowly, like one of the most narrow margins in the history of the United States. And Texas is a little bit more of a long shot because you would have to flip a lot more votes. This is why, for example, it's easier to flip a state like New Hampshire than it is to flip a state like Texas. For example, you had in the state of New Hampshire, for example, I'm not giving you real vote numbers, but because I don't know them to my head. But imagine in the state of New Hampshire, they had 400,000 votes on each side. Let's say you have to flip, 5% of that. So that would be 20,000 votes you only have to flip, which compared to Texas that has they have like almost 7 million votes, for example, for each side, so almost 14 million votes. Just thinking of how many votes you would have to flip, just 10% of that is 700,000 votes, which is a lot. So just thinking about it, it would be a long shot, and it's harder to flip. But those two states, in the tilt margins could be possible, but they're not things that you should count on. And the most realistic best case scenario for Joe Biden would be this map minus Texas and Georgia. And then you start taking away states and make it to our regular scenario. So this map accurately shows what a Joe Biden best case scenario could look like. And just really shows that Democrats could even get 412 electoral votes, which is something that has been done in like modern political times, like in the 21st century. Last time it was over 400 votes was when Reagan ran for president. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up. Remember to subscribe and turn on post notifications to be notified when I post my next video. And remember to join the giveaway link as there's only a couple days left. I hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.